New media or new digital media, critical literacy and critical media literacy, and digital literacies are a few more of the terms that we'll be using throughout the course. These are all connected to information literacy, but have very distinct connotations. Begin by reading James Gee's short segment on the New Learning Online site. The link is the first one on the screen. Then watch the video clip at the second link. Jim Gee has done a lot of research in the area of video games and learning. However, in this segment from his book, he discusses how the learning principles found in many video games should be used in education. He concludes by saying, the emerging area of digital media and learning is not just the study of how digital tools can enhance learning. It is, rather, the study of how digital tools and new forms of convergent media, production, and participation, as well as powerful forms of social organization and complexity in popular culture, can teach us how to enhance learning in and out of school and how to transform society and the global world as well. Page 14. Couple this statement with the video you viewed in the second link and tease out some of the skills that learners need to develop in order to be full participants in the 21st century learning. In your tutorial session and in the online discussion, be prepared to discuss how you might help your own future students develop some of these skills. Let's turn our attention for a moment to critical literacy. Critical literacy will be particularly important for us in Module 5 through 10, but the term will come up before that, so we need to introduce the concept now. Many people confuse the terms critical thinking and critical literacy. Although we need to be critical thinkers when engaged in critical literacy, the terms are not synonymous. I'm sure you have all been required by this point in your studies to do a critical reading of an article or a text of some kind. This, of course, involves being able to distinguish between fact, opinion, and bias, as well as to make judgments about whether something is good or bad, based on established set of criteria. You might also have to determine what is true and what is false. However, the question of truth, capital T, can get us embroiled in a huge philosophical debate about whether there is such a thing as objective reality. We'll leave that aside for now, but it's something you might want to discuss in your tutorial session. A critical reading also requires you to evaluate ideas as valid, invalid, or questionable, and to be able to detect and critique propaganda techniques. This is especially important when looking at the media. While the kinds of critical thinking skills outlined in the previous slide as essential ones, a critical literacy approach takes us further in our analysis of any kind of text. First of all, a critical literacy approach assumes a social constructivist perspective in that meaning is made through discussion, sharing, and debate, rather than merely existing on the text to be dissected. A critical literacy approach also emphasizes the notion that meaning is understood in the context of the social and historic, depending upon when it was written, by whom, where, why, and how. Likewise, the person reading the text is socially situated as well and approaches the text with different values, experiences, and beliefs, as well as having specific cultural and gendered background. These all have to be considered when meaning is being made from a text. You and I will read a text differently because we have different experiences, and you will probably read the same text differently today than you would 20 years from now. So, reading, as Paulo Freire pointed out, is an act of coming to know not just the world on the page, but the world as well, and it is a means of social transformation because we look at issues of power. Who has it? Who doesn't? Who is represented in the text? And by text, we mean anything from the written word to video or even a t-shirt. And whose perspective is not represented in the text? Critical literacy is an instructional approach based on critical theory and critical pedagogy. Your tutorial leader may ask you to dig a little deeper into some of the critical theory that has been used as the basis for critical literacy instructional approach. The theorists on the slide are a good place to begin your exploration. Critical literacy involves an analysis and critique of the power relationships among texts, language, social groups, and social practices. It shows us ways of looking at texts in all kinds of print, visual, spoken, multimedia, and performance texts to examine and challenge the attitudes, values, and beliefs that lie beneath the surface. It empowers teachers and students to participate in a democratic society, a just society regardless of race, culture, class, gender, or sexual orientation, and move literacy beyond the text to social action. Texts have the potential to socially transform the reader or viewer. In terms of applying a critical literacy approach in a classroom setting, there are a variety of critical literacy frameworks that can be used to look at a specific text. The 4 dimensions of critical literacy identified by Lewison, Flint, and Sluys, 2002, include disrupting a common situation or understanding, seeking to understand the text or situation in more or less detail to gain perspective, interrogating multiple viewpoints, standing in the shoes of others or thinking about text from perspectives or different characters or from perspectives not represented in the text, and focusing on socio-political issues, thinking about power and relationships between and among people, and exploring how power relationships shape perceptions, responses, and actions. Taking action and promoting social justice. Reflecting and acting to change in an appropriate, unequal power relationship between people. Here are a number of sample questions you can use to practice your critical literacy skills. In your tutorial session, you will examine a media text and be required to analyze it according to some of these critical questions. Our final term for this segment is digital literacy. What does it mean to be digitally literate? Andrew Selber, 2004, argues that to be considered fully digitally literate, we must be users, critics, and producers of digital text and information. We need to have proficiency with the tools of technology, but we also need to be able to collaborate and communicate when engaged in problem solving and decision making. Be able to synthesize multiple streams of simultaneous modes and information during reading and producing. Be able to critique, analyze, and evaluate multimedia texts, and of course, be good digital citizens. The International Society for Technology in Education, ISTE, developed a set of standards for technology use that include these 5 categories: creativity and innovation, communication and collaboration, research and information fluency, critical thinking, problem solving and decision making, digital citizenship. Looking at this list, where do you see IL fitting in? Keep these categories in mind for Module 3 when we discuss IL standards.